Greetings all. Another Sunday, another episode of Joel Album Review. This week I'm going to do like 3 episodes for one. To replace the double feature one I've done 10 days ago. And redo the Van Halen one from last week. See, certain weeks I take studio albums from a certain year and rank them top 10 style. Other weeks I take studio albums from a band and rank them from worst to best. You know, over the past 3 weeks on my album review series, I covered a trilogy of Aerosmith albums, like Permanent Vacation, Pump, and Get a Grip. If you haven't watched the most recent review of Aerosmith's Get a Grip, the link is on the screen. So this week, starting off with episode 21, I will rank all of Aerosmith's albums from worst to best. We begin with number 15, Night in the Ruts from 1979. It's obviously their worst record, mainly due to the fact that Joe Perry left midway through the album's recording. He would be replaced by Jimmy Crespo. None of these songs stood out for me at all, like with the exception of Shangri-La's cover of Remember, Walking in the Sand. I don't know what the fuck Steven Tyler was thinking when he called this one his favorite album. A lot of Aerosmith fans disagree. Since its release, it reached number 14 on the Billboard 200 and has gone platinum. Next, number 14 is Rockin' the Hard Place from 1982. This would be the last to feature Jimmy Crespo and the only album to feature Rick Dufay after he replaced Brad Whitford after he quit. Much like Night in the Ruts, none of these songs stood out for me at all unless you like the tracks like Bitches Brew and Lightning Strikes. Drummer Joey Kramer defended the album in his 2009 autobiography. Since its release, the album reached number 32 on the Billboard 200 and has gone gold. Number 13 is Done With Mirrors from 1985. The album was supposed to be the band's comeback record, but despite positive reviews, it was a commercial failure, only going gold and reaching number 36 on the Billboard 200. The album marked the return of the original guitarists Joe Perry and Brad Whitford. Standout tracks include Let the Music Do the Talking from Joe Perry's other band, the Joe Perry Project, Sheila, and My Fist, Your Face. At number 12 is Music from Another Dimension from 2012. Although it failed to reach gold or platinum status, the only saving grace that didn't reach the bottom of this list was the album debuted at number 5 on the Billboard 200. The only song noted is Legendary Child, a song that was written for Get a Grip nearly 20 years before. I did not care for much of this album either, so moving on. Number 11 is Honkin On Bobo. This was their covers album filled with blues artists they got the most of their inspiration from, such as Joe Williams' Baby Please Don't Go. The only Aerosmith blues song from this record is a song called The Grind, written by Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, and producer Marty Fredrickson. It reached the top 5 on the Billboard 200 charts, and it went gold. Not a bad blues album, to be honest, even though it didn't feature a whole lot of new material. At number 10 is Just Push Play from 2001. I believe this is the final Aerosmith album to reach platinum status, and it went number 2 on the Billboard 200. Just Push Play was Aerosmith's last piece of commercial success, which ran for close to 15 years strong, with a song like Jaded, which reached the top 10 on the Hot 100. It would be their last top 10 hit, as other standout songs like the title track, Just Push Play, Fly Away From Here, and Sunshine failed to impact the Billboard Hot 100. The title track made it to the mainstream rock top 40, while Fly Away From Here entered the adult top 40 at number 36. Next, at number 9 is Draw the Line from 1977. Despite the fact that this album only reached number 11 on the Billboard 200 and went double platinum, by that point the constant touring and excessive drug use was starting to take its toll on the band, especially with Steven and Joe being fucked up on drugs. The tracks that stood out were Draw the Line, Milk Cow Blues, and Kings and Queens. According to Joe Perry, he once said in a 2014 interview that Draw the Line was the beginning of the end, and decay of their artistry. How true. Because after this album we had Night in the Ruts and Rockin' a Hard Place. Two of the worst albums Aerosmith ever produced. Number 8 is Aerosmith's self-titled debut. This is the album that started it all. Steven Tyler wrote the majority of the songs on their debut. The standout tracks include Dream On, Mama Kin, Moving Out, and the cover of Rufus Thomas's Walking the Dog. Since its release, it made it to number 21 on the Billboard 200 and went double platinum. Here's a fun fact. This album was released the same day as Bruce Springsteen's debut, Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey. I guess you didn't know that, right? What the fuck? Number 7 is Aerosmith's second album, Get Your Wings, from 1974. This album would be the first produced by Jack Douglas. Despite the lack of success of their debut, Get Your Wings only reached number 74 on the Billboard 200 and went triple platinum. The standout songs include Same Old Song and Dance, Lord of the Thighs, Seasons of Wither, and Pandora's Box. And not to mention the cover of the Yardbirds' Train Kept a Rollin'. Despite the album failing even to crack the top 50, the reviews of Get Your Wings were mostly positive. At number 6 is 9 Lives from 1997. Aerosmith's second consecutive number 1 album that went double platinum in the United States. I felt that some of its luster was lost when it went all poppy with songs like Falling in Love is Hard on Your Knees, Pink, Holding My Soul, and Taste of India. Not to mention Ain't That a Bitch. The one thing that was missing and didn't make the final album cut was the fact that a year later they would have a number 1 single called I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, which made it to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1998. If that song was on the 9 Lives album, I bet it would have sold even more copies, surpassing their predecessor, Get a Grip. Number 5 is Rocks from 1976. This was the first Aerosmith album on record that had made it to the top 10, let alone the top 5 of the Billboard 200 album charts. The standout tracks include Last Child and Back in the Saddle. According to many critics, it is Aerosmith's heavy metal opus record. Blistering guitars, shrieking vocals, louder than anything else. Since its release, it made it to number 3 on the Billboard 200, which was their highest at that time, and went 4 times platinum. It's Aerosmith's heaviest record to date. Next, at number 4 is Aerosmith's Permanent Vacation from 1987. I covered this album a few weeks back on my album review series, and like it or not, this one is their real comeback record. The standout tracks for this one were Angel, Ragdoll, Do Looks Like a Lady, and Hangman Jury. Not to mention the opener, Heart's Done Time. Since its release, it reached number 11 on the Billboard 200 and sold 5 million in the US alone. It is their real comeback album, whether anybody likes it or not. Next, another Aerosmith album I recently covered on my album review series. And number 3 is Pump from 1989. Much like Permanent Vacation, it's called the high water mark of the glam metal / pop metal era that stood toe-to-toe against their undisputed mid-70s classics. Since its release, it reached number 5 on the Billboard 200 and went 7 times platinum. Thanks to the standout hits like Lovin' an Elevator and Janie's Got a Gun. Also, there were other songs like The Other Side and What It Takes. Next, now I most recently covered this on my album review series. At number 2 is Get a Grip from 1993. It has been referred to as the band's most successful album to date. Their first number 1 album on the Billboard 200, selling 7 million copies in America alone, with sales globally over 20 million. This album and Pump are tied for second for biggest selling albums in their catalog. The standout hits include Living on the Edge, Crying, Amazing, and Crazy. I also like the song Eat the Rich and another song called Shut Up and Dance. Here we are, number 1, Toys in the Attic from 1975. After their first 2 albums didn't get as much commercial success, Toys in the Attic just exploded, With such cuts like Sweet Emotion, Walk This Way, Big 10-inch Record, and the title track, Toys in the Attic. The album reached number 11 on the Billboard 200, and it's just a million copies shy of going diamond. Excess sales of 9 million copies sold in the US alone, for those that don't understand. 11 years after this release, thanks to a collaboration with hip-hop group Run DMC, Walk This Way became a top 5 hit on a Billboard Hot 100. Here is a quick recap. Once again, I did not care for that time period when they were struggling from 78 to 84 with albums like Night in the Ruts and Rockin' a Hard Place. Done with Mirrors failed to break even, despite positive reviews. The previous 3 albums saw the beginning of the end of their commercially successful run. It didn't matter to them at that point. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2001. The top 5 on this rankings list show the very best of Aerosmith, from 76's Rocks to the trilogy of multi-platinum releases such as Permanent, Pump, and Get a Grip. But nothing would ever top the blueprint that is Toys in the Attic. It didn't matter which version of Walk This Way I liked them both, and they were successful.
Don't you believe it?